This is Chris with Dive Zone Scuba for another technical diving tips, techniques, and trips video.
Hello divers, thanks for joining me today. The subject of today's video is the decompression regulator setup and rigging that I'll be using for the 2025 technical diving season. But before we start, I'd like everybody to pause this video and guess in the comments section what that thing is hanging below the second stage. What we have here is my 2025 low O2 decompression setup. So if you guessed that this bungee here was used for securing the second stage to the hose and the first stage, then you are correct. So this is one of the things that I'll be talking about here in this video. And the other thing I'm going to be talking about is a Kydex holster similar to the long hose Kydex holster from one of the recently released videos. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the whole setup altogether. So starting with the first stage, you'll notice that there are yellow wire ties on the first stage itself. And then there's also a yellow coloring on the second stage, and then also a yellow hose. So the first thing is, according to the video that I released late last year, by having your regulator, your decompression regulator rig set up color-coded, it's just one more additional measure aside of proper gas switching techniques that you can have to help ensure that you do a proper gas switch. Okay, so the all yellow coloring of the first stage, the second stage, and the hose is something that I'm going to be continuing to use this technical diving season. All right, so that's the first stage and the color coding. All right, so the second thing is, let's talk about this. We have, in this case,
An Atomic M1
that I use as my low O2 Deco regulator. And the way that the geometry is
with the M1,
and I'm not sure about other regulators, but there's a little groove in here between the exhaust port and also the mouthpiece. And what you can do is you can kind of pin it in there in that little groove, and it will help hold the hose. The only issue is that if you actually go on a dive, that what's likely to happen is this is going to come loose. And so we've tried different things like using octo holders, trying to pin it with an upper retaining band and so on. But one of the things that I have noticed over the last several years is that there are a lot of people who go through their decompression procedure, and what they end up having is their second stage flopping around loose. All right, so the way this works is there is a piece of bungee here, and it's thin enough that it's easy to stretch, but it's robust enough that it doesn't collapse upon itself. Okay, so you have to pick the right size bungee for this, and what you do is that you take that, and you can actually do this with one hand if you really want to, and you pull it over the mouthpiece. So what this does is it holds the second stage much more robustly than it would if you didn't have this. Okay, so that's the second thing that would be we are going to discuss today. Okay, now the last thing we're going to discuss is this thing down here. This is a holster, a Kydex holster, similar to the long hose Kydex holster that one of the more recent videos discussed. And it's very similar to the other one in the design. The difference is it's a little bit smaller, so it's more compact, and also that it's narrower because decompression hoses have a tendency to be not necessarily as thick as a long hose, a 7-foot long hose. All right, so once you snap the second stage onto the long hose, in order to secure the hose, you don't have to mess with a tank or a hose retaining band like that. All you got to do is take the end and put it in the Kydex holster. And so again, like with the long hose Kydex holster, the bend here secures the hose and it cannot come out on its own. So it's very easy to use, and also it holds the hose very well. This is a much more robust solution, alternative to things like using elastic tank hose retainers, or using, this is a silicone hose retainer here, and these sometimes break, and then the elastic hose retainers frequently degrade over time or due to exposure to UV light. All right, so this is the system that I'm going to be using for the 2025 technical diving season, and I think it's going to be much easier, require less fumbling with hose retainers and octo holders in order to stow your decompression tank. Also, just to demonstrate the way this is set up, it's also very easy to take it out. Okay, you can snap that out and then just pull the hose out. Okay, so deployment can be easily done with one hand in a very rapid manner, but it is also very secure, so you don't have to worry about your system coming up. This is a final side benefit. I don't really know what the value of this is, but if you have your tank and you're working on it for some reason, you can also take this and stick this over the, and conveniently hang it over the pressure gauge. I don't really know how much value that is going to be, but it's just an additional thing that you can do because you have this, this loop. Okay, so that's the decompression tank setup. This is Chris with Dive Zone Scuba. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.